Hello, I will be talking about graph model for conflict resolution. My name is Abdulganiy Abubakir Sideeq. So when we come to introduction to GMCR, that's graphic model for conflict resolution. It's all about real world conflict, decision making, states, feasible states, options, transitions, preferences, stabilities, equilibrium, and information to finally support decision making on whichever conflict. So it's more like a decision supporting tool to help support decision making to resolve conflict. So it helps on visualizing stakeholders, like multiple stakeholders. And these stakeholders are decision makers. They are known as decision makers. They can be government agencies, they can be ministries of environment, agriculture, they can be groups, they can be individuals, they can be gatherings, they can be institutions. So focuses on stakeholders, their strategies, benefits from the strategies, and what conflict can, or any potential conflict that can happen in future. GMCR also works on that. So these stakeholders, they have their preferences and options. After coming together and bringing by their strategies and actions and contributions, when it's brought in combination, GMCR also works on, is it stable or not? Can decision be changed by each decision maker or not? So that's all GMCR is all about when introduced, as introduced by me. So then there are key features of GMCR. Number one is stakeholder representation, as I summarized. So stakeholders can be investors, can be communities, can be consumers, can be customers, can be trade unions, can be governments, can be creditors, which implies investors when it comes to negotiations, in trade negotiations, communities, when there are disputes in communities, maybe a water pollution disputes or so, government, when there are major conflicts between various governments, in business, manufacturers and customers, the retailers, GMCR works through all over sector of life. So when we talk about stakeholder representation, stakeholders are the decision makers, as I mentioned earlier, and they have the power and authority to implement, to take decisions when it comes to conflict. So every decision maker possess actions and options they can choose from, which defines or make known to us what the conflict is all about. So for example, like an example I gave here, environmental water sharing dispute might include government agencies, NGOs, agricultural sectors. So everyone participating in this dispute are decision makers. Everyone involved are decision makers and they are stakeholders. So everyone, there is each actions and authority given to every decision maker for them to represent what's to come of a conflict, outcome of a conflict, and how to resolve it. So the other key feature is strategies and payoffs. This is all about strategies. There are choices available to each decision maker, and it comes GMCR uses rankings, ordinal rankings. Let's say the preference of group state A is over the preference of state B, preference of a government agent. Let's say a government agent is a decision maker. So the preference of the government agent is over the preference of a non-governmental officer, non-governmental organization officer. So that's what strategies are. Their choices, each choice is made by each of them. So these choices, so given that each decision maker can make choices, it makes GMCR flexible in modeling and analyzing this conflict, where the outcomes are challenging. So the combination of all decision makers' choices defines or explains the state of the conflict. Another key features, another key feature is states and transition. States represent all possible combinations of decision maker strategies, all combination of the strategies, of the actions they've taken, all combination, that's what states represent. So in an environmental dispute, for example, now, particular agreement level, like the level they've gotten to in the pollution of the environment, agreement level I'm talking about is the strategy of the government, strategy of the industry, strategy of the environmental groups, strategy of those living around the environment. Combination of all strategies is what state is all about. And transition moves from one from combined decision of decision makers to another when one of the decision maker unilaterally changes a strategy. So this analyzes the evolution, yeah, of the conflict and stakeholders, and it allows stakeholders to improve the outcomes, like the outcomes that resulted from their strategies. So another key feature is Nash equilibrium and stability. So the GMCR identifies stable states. I made mention when I was introducing GMCR the other time. It identifies stable states. It is also known as equilibria. This is where the stakeholders or decision makers have no incentive. They have no any other resource to change their strategies, because if they do so, it won't improve the outcomes. So if strategies are changed, at that point in time, the outcomes won't be improved. It's either it remain there at the agreement level, or there's um, there's a demotion. So a state is considered as Nash stable, that is in equilibrium, if no decision maker can improve their position by deviating, that is, by changing their strategy. So every decision maker views is the current state at least as good as any state reachable by their own move. So a practical application, an example is Almera groundwater contamination dispute in Canada. This was all about a company known as the Uni Royale. They are producing, they were polluting the aquifer, which is the main source for water for the community. The chemical was, I think, nitrosidomethylamine, NSDM. So the Ministry of Environment came in, and other NGOs came in. So GMCR was applied. Each stakeholders were the government, the company itself, those living in the community, those living around there, in the environment, and NGOs, and other companies which later served as their successor. They came in, they brought about their strategies, and they later got to a desirable decision. So, and by each decision, by formally representing decision made by the decision makers and their preferences, they identify stable states. Like they brought solutions where no one had resources to change their positions. So there was equilibrium from the beginning, which was the stakeholder representation. Everyone brought their strategies. Then the strategies of each decision makers, states, is got to the states where the strategies were combined, transitions. But for this example, no one was able to move from the existing strategy to another strategy. So it was all in equilibrium. There was no transition. The strategies, the actions were combined, and it brought about a well-detailed resolution for the conflict. And a good decision was made at the end, because there was a successor that continued what the Uni Royal Company did, and they had to purify the water, the aquifer, and the successor, and it was all okay. The conflict was well resolved. So, summary of the GMCR, as I mentioned from the beginning, is a powerful analytical tool to analyze complex conflicts, even conflict that are not as complex, which interprets how flexible GMCR is. So we're talking about complex conflicts involving multiple stakeholders with different strategies, different preferences, different actions. And states' ability to combine its strategies and giving a good outcome of the states, like the combined strategies and actions. This is what GMCR is all about. And maintaining equilibrium, like every decision maker will be satisfied and contented with what the decision finally is, which makes GMCR the best tool, the best decision making tool for any kind of conflict. And the last slide consists of my references. Thank you for listening.